Hi everyone, this is Leatherass for StoxPoker.com. Today I'm making a video of two tables of 5-10 no limit, playing on full tilt, which is a new thing for me. I am just kind of starting to get some numbers on people. You can see that some of these guys I have a couple hundred hands or so on. Mostly just getting my feet wet on this site. So a lot of my hesitation in making the 5-10 and 10-20 videos is that I play those games every day, and I don't want to give away too many reads, but in this case I don't really have any history with any of these guys anyway, unless they also have different screen names on stars. So I figure, what the heck, I'll just go ahead and make a video. So here I just start off by raising A6 suited, pretty standard raise for me, and I let in for around 2/3 to 3/4 of the pot. On a pretty decent board to do so. I'm going to continuation bet most flops once I raise under the gun. So that seemed like a reasonable enough board to do so. King 10 offsuit, pretty junky hand. I'm just going to go ahead and fold out of position. King 10 suited, I'd play there certainly, but King 10 offsuit, just a little too weak. King Jack, I'm just going to go ahead and open just for pot. Sometimes I make it 35 or 40 in the small blind here, but these short stack, so there's not much need to make large bets. And I'll just make a little over half pot bet, 35 here. It's a decent board, not likely to hit him too much of the time, so lucky enough to have it work there. We're going to try to get in here on this table on the right. Looks like a pretty reasonable enough table. I try to do a little bit of game selecting even for these videos. I just figure, so I'm going to talk about the importance of game selecting. I ought to do it myself when I make a video. So sometimes for the videos I'll try to pick a certain sort of lineup. But I just don't have a lot of numbers on these guys enough to really say for sure how they play. But I can pick certain kinds of lineups for different videos and talk about how to exploit all these different types of players. But for the most part, I just like to game select just like I normally would. So King Deuce offsuit against a raise. I don't know what this could mean from this guy, but we just saw him play 8-4 offsuit, so who knows. So on the table on the left, we have two guys I played a little bit with that are pretty aggressive. I know this guy Colmsum, I guess that's how you say his name. On the top left, on the left-hand screen, it's pretty loose aggressive, 26-22 over a fairly reliable sample. The 37 here, which is the number below the hands played, which is 278. The 37 number is his went to showdown, so he goes to showdown a lot, at least in this kind of sample. So the sixes, I'm just going to go ahead and open for a pot size bet. And we get shoved on, which I really don't think we can profitably call. I just think his range is going to be bigger pairs too much. So, and this guy, the Duff, to the left of me, can occasionally be trapping with a bigger pair too, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold. I don't think it would be a terrible call, but, because he's really loose aggressive, like 32-20, but I do think it's negative EV to call. That type of raise to me usually screams like specifically ace-king, ace-queen, or just a smaller pair. That's just figuring if he gets called, he'll flip. But You know, so if I knew it was only going to be those hands, I guess it would be a call because his smaller pair would probably be lower than mine, and you know, I would pretty much never be behind, but I can't really put it on that kind of range, on that narrow of a range. So this is a little interesting with nines. I could just 3-bet and look to get it in with him. That's probably not the best, so I'm just going to call. And I think I'm going to go ahead and play for stacks here and just I think I'm just going to lead out and just try to go bet 3-bet all in. I figure if I repop pre-flop, he's going to be in sort of a shove or fold scenario, and when he folds, I win a small pot, and when he shoves, I win a, you know, I flip a lot. So I like just calling there, and I'm just going to go ahead and shove and just hope he doesn't have me beat. All right, so that worked out well. Because even if he called with a couple overcards, you know, I'm still in a pretty vulnerable spot there. So I'm pretty happy just to see him fold. I really hate his raise there with the intention of folding to a shove. I mean, I think if he has like a hand like ace-king and something like that, and if he decides to continue, I think he should just shove it and hope I don't call, and if he does, figure he has some outs. 6 outs specifically is what he's looking for if he gets called. So the 9-8 suited, we have a limper. I think he's bad, but I'm not positive. I'm going to start by just isolating him up. And this guy's maybe a little on the short side to punish Lucky Sam for limping here. But the board, you know, may not, and it's somewhat dry, so I might just lead. I'm just going to lead out here and hope to take it down. And I made a pair, but I'm pretty sure I'm behind, so I'm just going to check fold. And I'm going to continue with this charade with the 9-8 and just fire about 2/3 to 3/4 pot bet. And you know, I made a pair now at this point, so I mean I can hope he has some sort of hand I beat, but there isn't much. And most likely he limped in with ace rag and, you know, made a pair, or he could have made his flush. So we're definitely happy to get a showdown here and just hope for the best. So it looks like we got him there. He had 4-3, so reasonable flop peel. Certainly not the play I would make, but I can at least understand him check calling there. So 7-5 offsuit on the button. I don't have enough information as to how tight the blinds are, so you know, there can come a time where I'll raise any 2 on the button, but I need to have more information. I look specifically for guys who have a fold to big blind to steal above 80. I look for both of them to have above 80 before I start raising any 2. Looks like I froze here. There we go. So we can definitely go ahead and mark Miss Suisse, or I don't know how you'd say that, as pretty soft. I put the soft players in green just for my own point of reference. I'm pretty sure we can go ahead and mark this guy as pretty soft as well, Lechame. And I'm pretty sure we can go ahead and add the duff to that too. And with King 5 offsuit, you know, it's somewhat playable, but I think folding is just fine. And my guess is Pairwin and Colmsum are 2 professionals. They look to be a little on the loose aggressive side. So it can make for an interesting dynamic when you have 3 sort of soft players and 2 strong loose aggressive players, because everybody's sort of fighting for the fish. So Jack 10 suited, since this guy's a little wild to me, this Lechame, I just chose, rather than to isolate, and he short stacked, I just chose to isolate, or rather than to isolate, I just chose to limp there. And I suppose if he was deeper stacked, I would like to peel here with my backdoor flush and gut shot straight draw. But with him being so short, I think I just have to fold. You know, plus it can get check raised and from the blinds, or, you know, it can get ugly. So I suppose I knew if I was closing the action, or if I knew if the 9 was coming on the turn, I would definitely call then. So I'm going to fold the 4-3 offsuit. It's just too weak. And I'm going to go ahead and mark Sam Farha. I don't think that's the real Sam Farha as a fish. And this Aladdin guy, I'm not, still really don't have enough information yet to make a judgment on that. King 5 suited, sometimes it'll open here, but you know, this guy can start shoving a lot with his 160, and this guy's, you know, pretty wild and crazy, and it's just marginal to begin with. So I'd look for some more tighter players before I'd start stealing with that type of hand from the cutoff. Certainly, guys with fuller stacks, I would be more inclined to play it as well. So we can't beat this. We got like 5 soft players between the 10 players of these two tables combined, so it's certainly a great situation. Sometimes I would just call here because sort of a weaker player with a weakish sort of raise size, and then if I had some loose aggressive players behind me, look to hopefully have them squeeze, and then, you know, then I can go ahead and re-squeeze. But I'm just going to play this one straightforward. I don't really have any reason not to. And with the King Jack, I'm going to open. I'm going to bet not too big on the flop, maybe just about 50 into 80 there. Just hope to take it down. And he peels, which, you know, could be a lot of stuff, but I don't really think he's going to fold, so I'm not going to try and move him off, especially when he doesn't have much of a stack. So right now I'm putting him on a hand like Queen Jack, Queen 10, and you know, maybe Jack 10. I think what I'm going to do, just in case he has King Jack or Jack 10, make it look like I'm really thinking here on the river, and maybe that'll make him less inclined to bluff me with a hand like Jack 10 or King Jack. Okay, Queen 10, so that's about what I put him on. Figure he might fire the turn with a hand like Jack 10, but you never know. And sometimes that little play by really kind of thinking on the river gets a hand like Jack 10 to check behind. It's always nice to win a pot with King High. You know, I don't think I could have really moved him off that hand. If he was calling the flop, he was, you know, he has a win to showdown of 40, so I'm certainly not going to try to run bluffs on guys like that. I just want to value bet them to death. So 10 deuce definitely unplayable. It's nice to be able to only play 2 tables. I enjoy making these videos. I've been upping my number of tables to 10. I've found to 10 at once, and I've found that I can play just as effectively with 10 as I could with 8. And so I'm pretty happy about that, because that's basically just gives me about 25% more income, which nobody's going to deny with it, or nobody's going to turn down a 25% pay raise. So I was pretty happy to discover that I could do that. But it is a lot less stressful and a lot more enjoyable, and you know, I feel like I am going to play at least a little bit better with just playing a couple tables as opposed to 10. A King Queen suited in position, it's, you know, I can think about squeezing here, but I'm going to be investing so much that if Miss Suisse comes over the top, I'm almost going to have to call. And you know, King Queen suited, I got the button. It's not a bad type of hand to just see the flop. And he's checked it so many times, I'm just going to go ahead and bet just under pot here and hope that he just gives it to me. Alright, so this is a great situation. No thinking involved. It's pretty obvious all in with his stack size. So now we just hope to have it hold up. Alright. 10-8 suited. We got a fishy player to my left. I'm going to go ahead and just call. I don't want to squeeze because this short stacker here is capable of having anything. So I think what I'm going to do is just lead out and start to try to build a pot with some semi-bluffing sort of going on here as well. Alright, so he probably does have a big hand, but what can I do? I mean, I'm just going to stick it in. I've got such a big draw. Alright, so we're probably about coin flip. Alright. I think full tilt's still trying to pay me back for what happened earlier in 07 when I somehow managed, as a former 8 big bet per 100 winner, I played well over 100,000 hands at -3 big bets per 100 at full tilt, and I ended up writing a blog about it, joking that I was quitting because I thought it was rigged. And then a lot of people took it seriously, so I had to write a blog saying that while I am still quitting the site because I can't win on it, I don't think it's because it's rigged. But anyway, before the UIGEA passed, I was winning at a rate of over 8 big bets per 100. This was at small to mid stakes like 200 and 400 no limit, and this is over a humongous sample of close to 1 million hands. And then I went over to full tilt and played for about 100,000 hands there, and lost around 3 big bets per 100 and almost my sanity as well. I have to say that. I don't think I was necessarily 11 big bets off my expectation. I don't think I was an 8 big bet per 100 winner, given that the UIGEA had passed and a lot of the games had dried up a little. But I certainly was a good sized winner in those games. So I was definitely 6 to 8 big bets off my expectation. It was the sickest run I've ever had in my life, without a doubt. King Jack offsuit, I'm just going to fold. I don't like to play offsuit junk out of position. But now I've come back to full tilt since I finished Elite, and just looking for a broader selection of games to play. And so far I've run pretty well, and I'm actually, I can say, in the first 15,000 hands or so, I've probably run a big bet or two above expectations. So I'm pretty happy about that, and I'm not going to lie, they owe me one. When I suck out on people, I do not feel bad. I definitely feel entitled, I guess you could say, with what happened about a year ago. Alright, so King 4 offsuit, I don't know, these guys just don't seem to be too active, so I don't think the fear of getting 3-bet is is too much of a concern, so I might just start raising a lot of stuff on and around the button against these guys. This looks a lot to me from Perwin like he's trying to isolate. I do have position. It's a junk hand, and I'm not sure how much further I'm going to run this bluff, but he really needs a strong hand to continue out of position and also deep stacked. He's got to fold pretty much anything, but his hands that have huge implied odds are obviously his really strong hands, like ace-king suited, aces, kings. So we're just making a little play here, and I was trying to think of the type of flops I would continue my charade on. I'm not sure this is one of them, because deep stacked, he's not going to 4-bet ace-king. Well, he might, but he could easily have ace-king, ace-queen here. And I'm going to check it back to him. Now that I think I'm just going to give up on this whole thing here. I mean, I suppose having a 10 is not too much in his range, and me checking the flop could be a hand like pocket 10s, but he's fired out, and you know, I'm just going to give up on this. A lot of people just really feel the need to continue with their charade, basically. When they 3-bet people light, they seem to feel the need to continuation bet a lot, and I just, you know, I don't know what to say. I really think that's a leak that a lot of really good players have. And I will say that I think I do get outplayed a little bit more than maybe some people might, but I think that good players in general at 5-10 and 10-20 spew a little bit with sort of just not giving up on pots. Like I made a play with my Jack-9 offsuit or whatever I had. Didn't work out. And some guys will just try to rep it the whole way, stack off there by firing the flop and, shoving the turn and stuff like that. And I really think it's a leak. I just think that, only c-betting some really good flops to c-bet there is the way to go. I would say I don't have specific numbers, but I don't think I c-bet after 3-betting much more than about half the time. Although I do go for check raises and sometimes check calls, and I do play some tricky poker at times because I don't want to just have people think that when I do check that I'm necessarily giving up. But because sometimes you do make a hand that has some showdown value, such as the one I just made. Now the ace-queen suited here, I chose to just call in position because ace-queen's the type of hand that, to me, I would prefer not to, I'm going to go ahead and make a bet of about 80 into 110. I prefer not to re-raise there because what happens is I lose the hands I want to play against, like ace-10 and king-queen and stuff like that, and I end up getting played back at with the hands I don't want to play against, like ace-king. So I do often call, just call there, basically looking to try to play a big pot when I flop good. And also I tend to be a little sticky post-flop. This is a very tricky spot here. I don't really know what Daddy, who I play with a little bit on stars, could possibly be check calling with there, or John Tripp. I mean, this could be a trap from Daddy with jacks. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of a cautious route and check behind here on the turn, even though I did give people a shot of, making the flush. I just believe people are going to have the flush, and, it's close. It's close. Betting does have some merits there, but, I just chose to play a little bit of a smaller pot there on the turn. And he bets 180. I really don't see any value in raising. And I certainly am not folding ever. So, okay, so we got money from a hand that was drawing dead on the flop, and I guess John Tripp folded, so we won't know what he had. But, it was sort of an interesting turn decision there. If it was against one other guy, I'd probably bet, but with two guys, it makes it pretty likely that somebody's, especially when the guy check calls there, somebody could be trapping, somebody could be, could have made their flush, and this gives me a chance to fill up for free too, and they'll still pay me off every time. I mean, if an ace hits on the turn, or the 9, or if the ace hits on the river or the 9, which, well, I guess the 9 would make more of an obvious full house, but, if the ace hits, I'm still gonna get all the money from the flush, so I'm not worried about losing my paycheck, so to speak, either. I'm not quite sure what John Tripp could have had. I mean, I suppose he could have had a jack. But, you know, it sucks when that fourth spade hits, but it also sucks when you bet that turn and you get check raised. So I don't feel that was necessarily a weakish sort of play. And against Diaddy's range, the only guy I was really worried about was John Tripp. Against Diaddy's range, it was definitely a correct check because he can have nothing there that's really even drawing live, other than if the fourth spade hits, he might have a spade in his hand. But he either is going to have something like a flopped full house there, or he's going to have a hand like he had. And the hand like he had was drawing dead. So it's nice to get that extra river bet out of hands like Diaddy had, who's definitely not calling the turn, and to be able to get that, you know, 2/3 pot or whatever he bet on the river is a nice little payoff. And you're not really going to have to worry about paying too much on the river. I mean, if the four spade does hit, it's an unlikely spot for him to bluff because you can just as easily have, you know, a hand like he has with a spade in it. So unless he makes the nut flush, or excuse me, if he does bet out, you can likely just fold if that fourth spade comes, going ahead and just giving him credit for either trapping with a big hand or having the 4-card flush. This guy Legend is kind of annoying to me. He's a short stacker. He's sort of a I don't know what you could say. So, I guess he makes money. I've seen him around forever, a couple of years now, on the sites. He plays sort of a weird style. Wouldn't necessarily call it a good style. But he short stacks, and he does a lot of limping, and you never know if he's really going to limp re-raise you or if he's just limping in with garbage. He limps in with absolute garbage sometimes, like on the button. And it's just, he sort of kind of ruins the table. I really prefer when he's not logged on, truthfully. Certainly not out of fear of him, but he makes it kind of annoying for me to sort of do my thing and pick on the other guys. Jack 10 off, you know, we are shorter handed right now, but sort of a reverse implied odds hand a little bit. So, you know, with a shorter stack, I'm just going to fold it up. And what I don't like about punishing Boy to Pimp here for limping is anytime is very loose and aggressive and has the button here. And I think he's just going to see my raise for what it is. It's just an isolation raise and sort of mess with me there. So you can see he's attacking himself, and more than likely he was going to attack me for attacking him. So, you know, this is just the small little things that makes 5-10, you know, a reasonably tough game, because guys don't let you just, you know, pick on the weak players. You know, they'll pick on you for picking on the weak player. You know, 1-2, I would make that isolation raise all day long. You know, 50 cent, $1, even, you know, 2-4. Just I'd raise it up probably with any two cards 100% of the time, and really only expect to get 3-bet from people who actually have hands. With 5-10, you got to be a little careful. You know, you have to be observant. You have to be thinking and sort of keeping an eye on what your image and what's going on. And the aggressive players will exploit you if you're not paying attention to those things. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and fire. He folds the flop bet over half the time, so it's certainly profitable for me to fire, you know, 2/3 pot bet, and that board wasn't likely to have hit him too often. The Jack-9 suited, you know, we do have the loose aggressive guy, but I would still like to open it, just because we have some deeper stacks, and when they do just call or fold, you know, I'm in pretty good shape. Alright, so I've got 2 overcards. This is sort of a semi-bluff here in my mind. I'm just going to bet in here. So, you know, I get called, so this can be a lot of things. You know, Ace-4 just got there. You know, he might just have a 9 of some kind, Ace-3, Ace-2, flush draw, all that stuff. But I don't think any of those hands are going anywhere. So I'm just going to check and fold. Alright, so I made a Canadian straight, but I don't think they honor those on full tilt. I'm going to bet just about half pot into the short stack here. And so I'm pretty much done here. Ace-9. Kind of shocked he didn't bet that turn. It was a fairly vulnerable hand there. But he seems to be more of a loose passive type, so I guess that shouldn't surprise me. This guy limped on the button, just doesn't seem to have a whole lot of game, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark him as a weaker player. Pair win is clearly isolating him to me, but he did make it a lot. Now it's going to be a lot for me to re-steal, so I'm just going to give it to him. My hand's not the greatest anyway, and he seems to be the type that doesn't give up. So I guess Aladdin left, and now any time 2-3-2-3 sat, and he seems to be on the looser and aggressive side as well. Alright, so this is what I'm talking about with the legend. I don't know, I mean, what do I even do here? I could limp. I don't like folding. Raising is going to practically commit me if he comes over the top and shoves. So I'm just going to limp behind here. Hope to see a flop and flop something really good. Alright, this flop's a little bit interesting in the sense that if it gets checked to, I really think I should fire bet here. And, you know, it's just one of those boards where unless somebody has a king, you know, nobody can really have much. And nobody's really going to look to get involved in a small pot unless they actually have something. So, looks like John Tripp does have a little something. And now Legend, you know, did his thing that I talked about that I can't stand. So, anyway. I look like a fool there, but I think that bet works like 75% of the time, and I only need to work about half. So, or less than half. Alright, so I 3-bet up on a 4-4-3 flop from the short stack. I'm just going to make a tiny little bet, and, well, I don't know if I like the tiny bet, actually. I prefer to do that maybe if I had aces, but he can peel kind of wide if I make a tiny bet. So, how about 88, something that sort of commits him a little bit more. You know, the 88 he's not just going to peel. With 50 he might. And then I'm going to have to pay off on the turn if an ace or a king hits and he goes wild, just because he doesn't have much left, and I think he could be bluffing or doing all sorts of stuff. So I'd rather not put myself in that position. Just bet a little more and sort of play it straightforward. Hope he has something like sixes and puts his money in, or just does something stupid. Alright, so King 9 offsuit. Don't think I'm going to call it all in here, so I think we'll fold. And on the left, the duff has got a little bit of fuller stack, which is nice, but just a trashy sort of hand, so not going to mess with it. Alright, well, I'm going to get my wish with Legend. Looks like he's going to be bailing here. When he doubles up, he leaves, so that's good. The 7-8 suited, you know, I could do a few things here. I could 3-bet, I could just call. I'm going to sort of lean towards calling just because the duff's bad, and he'll probably call and get a multi-way pot here. And on a flop like this, there's just nothing I can do. You know, sometimes I never fold there given the stack size. It's just a question of whether I call or 3-bet. And if I call, I tend to put moves on various sort of flops that are unlikely to have hit him, or just flops that are tough for him to continue on. For example, like, you know, if the flop had like a 6, 7, 8. Now, a flop like that with that hand obviously gives me a really strong hand, so I'm not bluffing. But, you know, if I had a hand like Queen Jack and the flop was 6, 7, 8, and I called there with Queen Jack suited, I would be inclined to often check raise or lead out on a flop like that, and just see if his hand can withstand any heat. If I 3-bet, then that's another way to play. If I 3-bet pre-flop, that's another way to play the hand aggressively. So I rarely just call and check fold and play at ABC. Usually I'm kind of up to something. So one play I've been playing with a little bit is just leading out tons of flops. Guys have kind of quit doing that, sort of being interpreted as it's been interpreted as sort of a donkish play, but I think it can be a good play if used properly, and with a lot of knowledge as to how certain opponents play post flop or how they might react to a play like that. So if I call here, I can just get myself in a mess here if J-Mark shoves, and it's just I have to fold. But yeah, leading out on the flop, just calling in the blinds and leading out on the flop, I think might have some merit. People are everybody is catching on how to play against aggressive players that 3-bet a lot pre-flop and then lead and then just fire lots of flops. I mean, that's, guys didn't know how to react to it, but, any sort of play is exploitable. So, if you do a play often enough over and over and over against the same opponents, they're eventually going to take the time and figure out how to exploit those plays. So I think mixing up your game and trying to stay essentially one step ahead of the trend is huge. I've noticed, from this is my 4th year as a professional, I've noticed that the play sort of goes in trends. Sometimes trendy to 3-bet a lot. Sometimes it's you get guys 4-betting you light one week, and it might all depend on whether one of us or one of the other poker coaching sites put out a popular video where they talked about that, and then it can become all the rage in a matter of a couple of days. So and when it catches on, if and when it catches on, then it starts to become a trend, and then people figure out how to exploit it. So it's just important to stay ahead of the curve. And I'm not going to get involved here with this 9. Certainly behind his range by quite a bit. So it looks like our good tables are kind of disappearing here. It might be a sign for me to wrap up this video. But we'll play until it breaks up. If it starts breaking up, then I'll wrap it up. All right. Well, we got one more guy. I'll sit back. I'll sit in here on the table on the right. I remember for a while there, 3-betting first started to be, the best players 3-bet a lot pre-flop, and they basically exploited the weaker players who didn't know how to handle all that aggression. Well, now everybody 3-bets pre-flop with all kinds of stuff, and everybody at 5-10 or 10-20 knows at least reasonably well enough how to handle those types of opponents. So, it's sort of becoming not as important anymore to be such an active 3-better pre-flop. I mean, it looks cool when you're bullying people around, you're stealing all these pots, but the fact is, I mean, a good player is going to eventually find a way to exploit that if you're doing it too much. So it's best to me just to sort of figure out what the sort of trend is and what people in people's games, they're sort of figuring out how to handle everyone. So when you kind of throw them for a loop, they're kind of like, oh, I haven't seen this play in a long time. I don't know what this means. I think I'll just fold. And that's sort of the mentality that you get. And, I go to 25-50 or, 50-100 game, and I'll see some plays that I don't see very often at 5-10 and 10-20, and I know it freezes me up. I'll just be like, gosh, I don't know what this guy's doing. I don't know what this means when this guy's leading out for a pot out of the blinds. Does that mean he's just on air? Does that mean he's looking to go bet 3-bet? Does he have a medium strength hand trying to find out where he stands? I have no idea. Because I know what certain actions mean at 5-10 and 10-20. But the best players are always mixing things up. So I think it's just important not only just to mix it up, but to also be making plays that your good opponents don't make very often, even if they are thought of as donkish or whatever, just making these sort of odd plays that guys just don't really know how to react to. So I think what I'm going to do is call it a video here. I'll just play a couple more hands and call it good. He just looks like he's just going to check fold. Yeah, so I just made a little pot size bet there and let him know I wasn't messing around. When guys check, it's never such. It's almost rarely a bad thing to just go ahead and stick some money in there and hope for the best. So it doesn't matter what your cards are. That's one thing I finally had to tell myself when I was trying to figure out what the best play was to make. It's almost never a bad thing to just bet. I mean, you can almost never go too wrong. Sometimes I'll be playing 10 tables and I'll forget what the action was. I can't remember if I called out a position or what I did, but I just say, hey, what the hell, and I just bet 3/4 pot and hope for the best. It's rarely ever a mistake to bet unless, I guess I should just, I should just leave it at that. Of course, there are times when it can be a mistake, but like I said, if I just say rarely a mistake to just go ahead and just bet, I think that's a pretty accurate statement. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up the video right here. I'll be interested to hear your comments on the video. We got, we'll get a thread going, and I'll certainly be active in that thread and answering whatever questions you guys may have. Thanks for watching the video, and take care.